Our Father in heaven, creator of all things, we thank you for this opportunity to serve our people. We ask that you would be with each one of us as we combine our wisdom and knowledge together to make good decisions. Be with each one that's here today, especially we want to remember our service people all over the world. Pray for their safe return and soon. Forgive us for our sins. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
This time we'll do roll call.
Joe Bird,
Here.
Don Garvin,
Aye.
Bill England,
Here.
Jack Baker,
Here.
Julia Coates, here. Jody Fishingham, here. Meredith Fraley, Janelle Fulbright, Frankie Hargis,
Here.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
Here.
Hannah Glory Jordan,
Present.
Lee Keener,
On me.
Dick Lake,
Here.
Curtis Snell,
Here.
David Thornton,
Here.
David Walkingstick, Kara Cowan Watts.
Honey.
We do have a quorum.
This time we'll drop down to the approval of minutes for the last, it's January the 16th. This time I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we'll drop down to reports, Talking Leaves Job Corps, Career Services, OCAD, Diane Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, before we begin the reports, I would ask that we amend the agenda, or never mind, I have the wrong resolution. Excuse me.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, Diane.
Diane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to say congratulations on your recent election back to the Tribal Council.
Thank you, Diane.
Wanted to report on, you've got my report that I sent you. The Talking Leaves Job Corps Center, Jay was turning cartwheels. He got his report. We're still the #1 center in the state of Oklahoma. This is the second month, and this is the first time in history that we've had a Job Corps Center that we've beat Guthrie for 2 months in a row, and we're excited about it. We also are climbing on our stats nationally, and Jay is, Mona and Jay and Jan, all of them are ecstatic because their performance rating in their gains has went up drastically. So they're hoping that they can keep it up if we can keep the center full and Delbert can keep bringing in the recruits. They also received a National Star Award this past week in Washington, D.C. For their community service efforts. It was for their activities that the students participated in civic organizations, parades around the area. Also work with the cultural grounds. Andrea Barkley Dickerson is our BCL, and she was there along with Jay Littlejohn to accept the award from the National Job Corps. Senator Coburn had a representative from his office visiting all the Job Corps centers and all the workforce partners in the state this past month, and they sent out questionnaires to the Job Corps centers, but they didn't send one out to us. They just came and visited us and ate lunch, so we think that's a good thing because they didn't send us a questionnaire like they did the other 3 centers, so we felt good about that. Also this morning, we had a state workforce meeting over in Muskogee, and the topic was the graduation test that all seniors are having to take. And one of the things that the state workforce is doing is they've been asked by the state to look at putting together in some of their workforce offices some computers to assist any of those seniors that are needing help, and they're going to be partnering with us in our areas where we have literacy centers. So we told them that we would be glad to assist wherever we could. Are there any questions?
Councilman Walkingstick?
Hey, Diane. On the, is that maybe a recommendation on the day work program? Maybe having some type of a apprenticeship where one of the day work programs could go and intern or shadow a electrician or a plumber for so many hours. We do have a large facilities crew up here, SC&E and so forth, but maybe having some of those people that may be interested in going into that field. I don't know how you would set the process, but kind of a job readiness program, I guess.
Are you talking about,
And we're paying
for
them.
instance, using the people that are working at CNE or at the Housing Authority that have a plumbing license or a electrician,
Yeah.
and that we
Or heat and air.
would develop some journeyman programs for them?
Yes.
We can do
Yeah.
that, no problem. In
Okay.
fact, we have talked about doing that with the construction, with the housing. That's something that we've been talking about amongst ourselves, and when that gets into full, when it starts moving and we start getting things going, we can do that through the tarot. We can do that, no
And
problem.
my next question is the VOTEC scholarships. I guess, do we have VOTEC scholarships in the tribe?
We have
Or-
vocational,
yeah,
we have
vocational,
vocational
yeah, sorry.
people that come through for vocational assistance. Could be transportation, it could be a stipend. We can do that, but I would prefer to go through the tarot
Is that
training.
funding sufficient? It's
No.
not, it's very low.
No, in fact, we've already obligated all of our vocational money up through the fall for next
Good.
year.
Because we all know that a lot of our Cherokees aren't cut out for college, and that but if we give them a trade through vocational, heating and air, electrician, we probably need to be pumping our money in this direction as well, of equipping them to go into the work field.
Would you allow us to go back and sit down and put something together and present it back at next month's committee meeting? Would that
That'd be great, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe see how much funding we need for some, go to truck driving school or heating and air or whatever,
You know, one of the things that we can look at too is that our major contractors that we have working with us, like Manhattan, Ross, Flintco, some of these major construction companies, they had offered scholarships in the past. Maybe we can work something out with them where they can help us with some of the training pro bono for some of those people, so we're not out an instructor for it. So we can sit down with them and I'll come back and report back to you.
All right, I think.
Good.
Thank you.
Councilor Fishenhoff?
And on your day work program, are we still using the little cards to pay and make payments?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
And are they still charging us like $2.50 a piece?
I believe they are, but I would have to check with the finance office to see if that is correct. But I
Okay,
believe
we're
that,
still using Bank of America.
yes, ma'am.
Can you ask the new treasurer to please talk to them, because before I told them that was an outrageous amount of interest, considering they hold all our money.
Okay.
And could you get with the treasurer and see if they can't work something out?
Yes, I will. Lacey has been looking into that, and she's gonna try to come up with some way that we can come up with a better system. So I know that she has looked at that. That was one of the things that she looked at when she first came on
That's quite a
board.
bit of cost,
Yeah, yeah, she is looking into it.
because I like to think of all the money we could have been saving these past several years. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Garvin?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Diana, I got an email from a person in my district. She was concerned about kids getting in trouble and going to jail and prison, and felons. It kind of, the problem is when they get out and they've paid their dues, you know, to get a job is almost impossible. She wanted to know what maybe Cherokee Nation might be able to help those people.
Is this a different client than the one that Janelle sent me the email on,
It's the
or is it the
same
same one? Daryl Legg, who is our vocational manager, Daryl has been working with Mary Dunlap, who's one of our counselors, and then we've been working with one of Marcia Lamb's staff people, and they have been working on some sort of a reentry. We are looking at possibly carving out some of our day work for just those reentry areas. And one of the things that we're looking at doing is identifying, going back and re-identifying all those people that are in our directory that had identified themselves as Indian-owned businesses back about 3 years ago, updating that right after summer youth is over with, and at the same time, identifying those businesses that would work with us for those people that are felons. There are some businesses out there that will work with us, but we just need to identify where they're at.
Well, I know it's a problem for the whole society, really, but their record's gonna be with them the rest of their lives, and they'll have to make those adjustments. And I'm glad you're working on that, and I haven't talked to this lady since I've talked to Janelle, but I will, and appreciate what you're doing.
One of the areas that we need to steer them into is to get them back out and get them in a training program so that they're more marketable whenever we actually start trying to place them. Because a lot of them are coming out, and some of them have maybe got their GED or they got some training while they were there, but they're not marketable, and we need to be able to make them marketable, and they're gonna get jobs a lot easier if we can do that. We did this with a few people in-house, and those people are working out real beautiful, because we sent them through some business classes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Counselor Harvey?
Diane, I have had a couple calls about the skeleton staff that we have there in Stillwell, and was just wondering, do you plan to increase your staff? Or, I mean, because I went down and visited, and the day I went, it was just Faye that was there.
Okay,
Even the
can I
secretary
explain to
was
you
out.
something to you? When you all changed districts this last time, that basically opened the door for us to do more in those northern counties. And when we started working with C&B, especially with Hard Rock, I had to start moving people around to accommodate the flow of traffic. And when you look at the flow of traffic in that Stillwell office compared to some of the other offices, I don't have that much traffic coming through there. We have a lot of traffic, but a lot of it is workforce, the state workforce, because they're coming in for unemployment, and it's not so much our office. If you look at my offices in Muskogee, I have one worker. In Pryor, I have one worker. In Veneta, I have one worker. In Claremore, I have 2 workers. In Stillwell, I had 2 workers, and if you looked at their caseloads, one of them had a good caseload, the other one didn't have very much at all. So I had to look at where my caseloads were, and Sequoyah County is the highest unemployment county right now, and that's where all the people are coming in down there because they're unemployed. So I had to shift those people down there. I don't have the resources to hire any more staff at this time. We're having to make do with what we have. This past week, I had to pull one of my tarot people off to go and help. We're getting ready to do about 6 6 job fair recruitment for C&B. They've got over 100 and something jobs that are open, and we're trying to help them get out in these grassroots communities so that we can get some Cherokees to the table to get some of these jobs. So we're going to be doing that in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So I'm trying to move people around to deal with the demand.
Okay, and I know you're gonna start taking summer youth apps on March 12th.
That is correct.
Will that still be just Faye there at Stillwell?
It will.
Because the day, like I said, the day I went, it was just her. She was answering the phones and taking.
We have a day work, we have about 9 day workers in every one of these offices, and they're all helping the staff right now. We've got houses that housing authority's getting ready to build. I've got all my tarot staff hooked up there. I've got all this construction going on in Veneta, Ramona, and they're all hooked up there. You name it, my staff is out there, and they're coming in at 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Some of them are starting out at 6:30 and 7 in the morning, depending on where they're actually going.
Okay, and, you know, I worked for your department for 8 years, there, this last go-around, and they're in Stillwell. The receptionist was always a program or a day work, now recently a day work program. Would you or could you consider making that a permanent position where when they get one trained, she stays? She or he?
I don't have permanent people in any of these other
Well, in the
offices.
future, in your next budget, could you look at that? Because or even if you made it a clerk receptionist.
If I did that for Stillwell, I'd have to do it for my other offices as well.
Did you not do that in Salisaw though? So don't we have a couple clerks down there?
We have clerks in Pryor, and we have a clerk in Salisaw. That's because of the caseload. Now, if that caseload shifts, then that clerk will move to wherever the caseload is. That's why we've got people from here driving to Claremore.
Okay.
You have to look at the realistic caseload. If you don't have someone that has over 4 or 5 people on their roster, and you got one sitting out here with 80 clients.
Well, I understand that. I just, I was in the future budget, maybe looking at having a permanent receptionist is what I'm
If we ever
looking
did
at.
any additional funding, I would be glad to do that, Frankie. I'd like to have that in every one of our offices.
About
And
budget?
we'll take it under advisement.
Yeah,
Thank you.
is that good? Counselor Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm almost afraid to ask about funding. You're talking about it here, Diane. First of all, thanks for the job fairs and all the help with the small vendors, Cherokee vendors. That's greatly appreciated. The vendor assist person, we discussed, a month or so ago. Have you had any chance to think some more about about that, on a person to assist small vendors who are not computer literate and or otherwise.
Are you talking about the bid center?
Yep.
The bid center's Anna's area.
Okay, I'll get her.
Okay.
The senior test thing that I've been hearing a lot about that you mentioned a while ago, how long do they have to take? If they flunk it once, they're out, or can they take it multiple times?
I really don't know a lot about it. It was just thrown at us this
Okay.
morning, and we said that we would help out wherever we could. If they need computers and they can get a pre-test of some sort that the workforce can get, we'll partner with them, because that was one of their marching orders, the state's, not mine. But we are partnering with them in a lot of the local areas. And I told them whatever we needed to do, we've got the computers in our lit centers.
Thank you, and I'd like to give some time to Counselor Walkenstick. He has my answer, I think. I hope so.
You have 3 opportunities to pass your EOI test scores, and if you don't pass them, then you got to do projects in lieu of the EOI test to advance to the next grade.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is that good?
That's good, thank you, sir.
Okay, Counselor Watts?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand that we're already out of the VOTEC or ClearTech funds. They're already obligated for the year.
That is correct.
So there's a couple of things that if you are gonna do a report that I would like to consider, because you're pretty good about, Diane, about tracking unmet needs.
Okay.
So if you have those unmet needs for the past year or two, when we're already obligated, what are we in, 5 months into the fiscal year? You know, and that's a big need. But I understand from our school teachers, I talked to a principal at Claremore recently, and he indicated that our folks in most need of those programs are no longer served by Oklahoma Career Tech typically, because they only take the top students instead of the students that may need that vocational training the most. So do we provide some kind of consultation to the state of Oklahoma about that missing link? Because then we're not getting those kids coming out of high school, and they're gonna flounder probably for a while. And I know the school system's frustrated. So there's maybe.
We've got 2 pots of money, Councilman Watts. One of them is our federal, which is income driven. Then the other one is our in-house tribal monies. And the one that's driven by the income, those people have to meet income eligibility. They're not in that higher, they're not gonna be in that higher socio-economic area. They're not gonna meet the criteria for getting in some of those schools with the state. The state came up with their criteria based on the fact that they only had a limited amount of money. So that's how they were taking them, because they had too many people that were dropping out.
So the other part of my request on the report analysis is we collect tarot fees, and I think we've been very successful at doing that. Can those tarot funds be used in that setting as well? How are we using those right now?
They can be used for training, and they are being used when Daryl has a area that is construction related, or it's more into the mechanical area. He works with John, and sometimes John will pay for the testing that somebody needs in order to gain a job, or sometimes he may pay for the relocation expense. So they are working together in that respect.
I guess if we know that we have these potential students that want to go into a career path and they've identified a program, if we're not expending those funds that we're generating through the tarot, I think that could be a successful match. I want to know if you would review that particular option and come back to us with some kind of.
I can.
I would appreciate in that report that I think I heard you were going to do for next month, maybe, or prior to
Okay.
that.
I will.
I'd like to see it before we get to committee, so I have my questions.
Okay. I'll try to do that a week before the
Okay,
committee.
that would be great. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Counselor Thornton?
Yes. Diane, the day work programs, I know I brought this up before. Is there any way that we could put together a crew of people that's on day work, and maybe they be carpenters? I know we've had carpenters, I know we've had electricians, I know that we've had heat and air people for a little while. But is there any way we could put together a crew of those people to help our elders and our people that are handicapped, that on our programs that go in and have materials only programs, and they could go in and help them with their house, replace a roof, put on a porch.
We can assign day work training participants to specific crews for a specific project. We do that right now with the cultural grounds, we do it with community development. We did it with them out there at, what's that housing addition out there that you guys were behind on in Sequoia County? I can't think where that.
Redbird?
Yeah, Redbird. We sent crews out there for about 6 weeks to help them. We knew exactly what the window was, and we made sure that we had those people hooked up for 6 weeks.
I realize we do that, but what I'm trying to do is bring us into community services and help our people that need rehab on their homes.
You would have to have a supervisor that's a tribal employee, and you'd have to have a vehicle from one of the programs that's actually assigned to do those things. And then they would have to request through Jeff Vance so many workers on an ongoing
And
basis.
what
And
you're
it may not be
saying
the
that we
same
need to
people
go
all the
through,
time.
Community services and try to get them to bring up something.
It could be
on that.
community service, or it could be housing, I'm not really sure, but it would have to be one of those venues that has people that do that type of work, that would actually have the vehicle and have the job sites to go to.
Dinah, I think if we just had supervision, then that would address the liability issue. I think
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
saying, but it could be done.
But what we
That's
would
a-
do is
that's a
we'd have to
good-
rotate people through there, it wouldn't be the same people. So if
No.
we put Diane Kelly and Julia Coates and Jack Baker out there this week, and maybe for 2 or 3 weeks, well, then we may have to rotate them and put David Walking Stick and Chuck and David Thornton out there the next 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah, but the thing about it, within a week, you should be able to do quite a bit of work.
Handicap, man.
We don't have any objections in doing that, we'd be glad to do it.
Was there any way that you could, or someone could come up with a program for that?
I'm not the person that would actually do that.
Okay.
I'll come up with the labor, somebody like Pat Gwynn or David Sutherland or those other
Okay.
areas that do that type of work.
Okay. That's a good
But you
idea.
will put those people, those day work people into that program?
Yes, sir,
Is
we
what
will.
you're saying. Okay. Thank you.
That's a good idea. Counselor Jordan?
Some questions on the day work program, Diane. How many of those cards would you estimate we have bought from Bank of America, say on a yearly basis?
I don't know, but I can find out, and I can probably have that ready by the 3 o'clock meeting today.
That would be great.
Okay.
Because if they're charging us out at $2.50 a card, that's got to be impacting the ability of the program to put more people to work. And I really have a concern that Bank of America has a lot of our money in their bank. I know, and at least in some instances I've heard it's a non-interest bearing account, a few of them. And yet we're still being asked to pay for those cards. It seems to me like there ought to be, we ought to have the ability to get a waiver on the cost of those cards. I'm not even asking for a reduction. If they want to keep our money, they are to be able to work with us on some of those amenities, those extra amenities that we need. Possibly they could quit offering their condo for people to use and give us a break on the price of those cards. Just a thought.
Yeah.
I'll visit with the treasurer.
The other thing that I would like to see, and I think this probably is within your ability. Previously, I know those cards could not be cashed at a bank. And I would like for us to look into allowing our participants to cash the cards at a bank so they can use that money, if they desire to do so, to pay their bills. Because I think that's probably the #1 complaint I hear about the day work program, is we can't get the money where we really need it to go. We're losing our house because we can't pay our rent. And we can't utilize that card to get that rent paid.
Okay.
But if they could cash it at the bank, I think then they could use the money where it really needs to go. These people are coming to us as adults. And I think that we have to treat them at some point as adults and let them use the money the way they desire. I know there's always been a concern, well, they may go out and use it for things they really don't need. But as adults, we have to make those choices in life. Are we going to, well, my husband used to kid me when we were young and we had children, okay, I guess we're not gonna buy beer this week because we gotta buy milk. Of course, we didn't drink, so that was a very easy choice to make because we're not people that need beer. But that was all, he would always kid me in the grocery store, well, I guess we better get this milk and we can't get the beer this week. So those choices have to be made.
That's true.
And they have to be made by adults. So at some point, we need to treat these people as the adults that they are, and if we hand them a card and it's, at the end of the week, is it like $250? It can be up to $250.
Yes, it can be up to $250, that's correct.
If it's $250, let's let them put it on the things that they worked for, which is to pay their rent, buy their groceries, buy the gas for their car, pay their monthly bills, without putting restrictions on it.
We had discussed early on, several months back, about some sort of a vouchering system where we might be able to partner with C&E at some of their venues to do cash payouts. And I know that's been discussed. I don't know exactly where we're at with that, but a vouchering system might possibly work. We do payouts over at Job Corps. We pay out over there, and we pay cash out every 2 weeks over at the Job Corps Center for their clothing and everything.
Well, actually, cash would be even better if we were paying out cash, because then I know some of these places are taking the cards, but they're charging them a fee on that end.
Yeah.
We're getting charged a fee to get the card, they're getting charged a fee to cash the card.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we don't reload them, is because it's not a work program. It is a training program, and that is a stipend that they're actually getting.
If we could look, I mean, I see moving forward, I see new ideas and broader ideas and bigger ideas. I think it's time that we rethink how we gave out, or how we're giving out that money.
Okay.
And I would ask for you to look into that, and also to look into the number of cards, because I am quite concerned that we are not, you know, when we, in the business world, and all of us have been in business probably one time or another, if you do a lot of business with someone, you usually expect a break in some little area on something else. And I think these cards need to be our little break with that bank.
Okay.
Otherwise, maybe we ought to be looking around in another bank.
I can truthfully say, the very first week that Chief Baker took office, that was one of the discussion items that he and I had, and Jeff Vance. And when Lacey came on board, that was one of the things that was brought to her attention. And she has assured me that she is looking into that, and I have a lot of confidence that she's gonna come up with something. But it may need to be moved up on maybe the prioritization list, and I'll visit with her about that.
There's an awful lot of banks out there that I've been in contact with that want an opportunity to bid on our money. And maybe this is the time that we look at that. Because for too long, we've been banking with one institution, and they're getting too used to us. Maybe we need to make it a little more competitive. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Hoskins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the summer youth program, I'm curious about the job sites, if you know a list of them. I'm particularly concerned about Nowata County, where I think historically it's been difficult to find places to put kids to work, and there may not be, relatively speaking, a lot of applicants, but I do know I do get calls from Nowata County. Sometimes it's before the program starts, sometimes it's after people finding out about it, but so I would like to know if we've identified any job sites over in that area.
Okay, well, you're getting in on my report for this afternoon, because I do have some handouts on summer youth.
I'll defer to that.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll be glad to give you all that information this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor King?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, my question is about day work as well. I guess when I get the call that snow day, a gentleman drove to Tahlequah, and then when he got to the office, they said, "Oh, we're going to be closed today," or "We're going to open up at 10." So we don't have anything for you to do today, so you can go home. And then another one was, I think, Friday, where the person drove again, and when they got here, they said, well, the supervisor's at a meeting, so you can't work. So, does that happen very often, or so?
We have information posted on just about all of our offices where we work the day work Monday through Thursday. I mean, everybody pretty much that's been working day work, there's signs up that we work Monday through Thursday. The reason that we don't place on Friday, now, I'm not gonna say that we don't. We have made arrangements to place up through Friday. If there was a project or something going on, sometimes they are certified from Tuesday through Friday. And we do maybe about 20 payouts on Friday if there's a project that's going on, like maybe over the vet center.
And I may have misspoke, it may have been a Thursday.
But we do the payouts on Thursday afternoons, and on Monday with the snow day, that's a real extenuating circumstance, and I had no control over that whatsoever because we had skeleton crews all over in some offices. We didn't have but maybe one worker that showed up. In some offices, we didn't have anybody because they couldn't get in.
When they got to the office, the response in both cases was, we forgot to call you. So,
Well, they wouldn't have called him if he was a participant that was coming in for services. They wouldn't know that he was coming in.
no, he's coming in to work.
But Councilman Keener, what I'm trying to tell you is, we didn't know that they were gonna send out information that the offices was gonna open at 10 o'clock. That came in after everybody, some of them got to work, some of them weren't here. And we didn't have the workers. And so when the snow day hit, we didn't have any other option because we didn't have the people here to do the work.
Okay, well, let's drop the snow day and how about the meeting day?
We post signs all over our field offices when we have a day that we pull everybody in. And we have to do that because we had a meeting, I don't know if it was last Friday or Friday before last. We've got our summer youth fairs that are starting in March. We have skeleton crews in some of our offices, which we talked about here. And everybody is saying, we've got to go out and hit the schools. We've got these job fairs, who's going to do them? So we had to have a meeting so that I could assign different people leadership roles in those various districts.
Well, how would the day worker know that? How would they be notified?
On Fridays, we don't do payouts unless there was special circumstances around maybe 15 or 20 workers. Now, I know that they left here in plenty of time to get back out there to do any payouts that they had because we had workers out there. I don't know about this one worker that you're referring to because we didn't have any complaints. Now, we did have complaints about 2 weeks ago with the cards that were given out because it was Bank of America who had a glitch in their system, and we had a bunch of people that couldn't use those cards. And Lacey and her staff were working with us, and it was Saturday before Bank of America got those glitches fixed. So we had a whole bunch of people that couldn't get paid.
Okay, then, but if the day work came on Thursday and then they returned away, how would they be notified about that?
I really don't know because I don't know the client, I don't know the counselor, but I'll be glad to get that information from you and follow up on it and let you know.
Okay, and also, I've heard that the day work will show up and they just maybe work an hour a day. I mean, that's the day, they get paid for it, but they end up just working the day, an hour per day and get paid for that day. So I was under the impression if you were in day work, you'd show up and work 8 hours a day or whatever the specified amount of time was.
I'd have to know who the client is and we'd have to follow up on it because I'm not going to tell you that didn't happen because there have been isolated incidents where somebody has not showed up. We had a person who was sitting out in a car, he brought in paperwork and wanted to get paid, and the job site supervisor had already notified us that he hadn't been there in 2 weeks. So when somebody tips us off, we're checking those things. But we have counselors that go out, they've got work experience, day work, they're working with OJT, they're working with vocational. So they've got a whole array of people they're trying to keep up with all over the 14 counties. And if you know of a client that you're getting information on like that, if you'll let us know, we'll be glad to check it out for you.
Okay, well, this is one individual was embarrassed that he had to take day work, but he was concerned because he felt like he could have earned more that week than what he actually earned. And it cost him a lot in gas to get there and time. So he was willing to work, but he was turned away, so.
If the individual could have gone out and got a job and made more on day work, that's what he should have done. Because the day work program is there for emergencies, Band-Aid effect. It's there to help somebody over that hump. It's not in place to
Right.
put somebody to work. It's just a Band-Aid effect so that we can help them, so that they can get those skills to go out and apply for other jobs.
Right, and that's what he's doing, applying for other jobs. This is gonna help him in the interim. And so he felt like he got shortchanged because he could have worked more, but he was turned away.
Again,
But
if you'll
now-
let me know who it is,
but
I'll
now he
gladly
does have a
check it
job.
out.
He got a job this past Monday.
Okay, that's good. So if you'll let me know, we'll look into it.
I don't think he wants his name revealed, but he was embarrassed.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Fulbright?
Yes, thank you. I was wondering, I heard, and I wanted you to confirm it, that we were gonna put about 50 day workers out at Blue Ribbon Downs to spruce the place up and clean up. Is that true or not true?
We are going to put some day workers out at Blue Ribbon Downs on a project with C&E. I don't know exactly the number, but I do know that Jeff and Daryl were down there meeting with C&D last week. I don't exactly know when the project's going to start, but that was one of the things that we were asked to do.
Well, we're hopefully waiting the opening of the tracks back in the near future, we hope so.
Okay.
Right, thank
Anything
you.
we can do, like I said, in regards to Councilman Keener's comments about this worker, anytime you've got somebody that calls you or you know of something like that, just give me a call, or Jeff Vance, who is the director of the day work program, and we'll be glad to look into it. Because there's usually two sides to every story, and there are extenuating circumstances in some cases. And we'll do our best to try to respond to you in a timely fashion.
Any more questions? Good report, Diane.
Thank you.
Next report, Executive Director's report, Dr. Neil Morton.
Thanks, Chairman Byrd, and good afternoon, councilors. You have our report from Education Services. I have a couple of announcements, but would entertain questions preceding those announcements if you have them concerning programs. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm assuming.
Questions, Councilor Watkins first.
Hey, Dr. Ward, how many Sequoia High School students is going to be affected by the EOI test?
I'm not sure. Last I heard, 5 or 6, but I'm not. I'm not sure on the exact number.
Appreciate that. That's all.
Okay. Councilor Fisher-Home.
I was gonna tell you, it was a wonderful program Monday, Dr. Martin, up at Catoosa.
It was a good day. It
And
really was.
I had a couple of schools contact me, and one of them was in Janelle's area. They're wanting to set up a meeting with you because of this trigger. They're gonna, may pull as early as March or April
Mhm.
in these schools. So I'd like to set up a meeting with you at some point in time.
Very good.
Okay.
Anytime. I can find some time about it. anytime.
Okay, we'll find some time, we can all get together with you.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for Dr. Morton?
Okay, announcement-wise, last month I talked to you about the Promise program at NSU, the dorm program. At that time, there were a few questions concerning the program. In meeting with officials at Northeastern and here with the College Resources Office, I think all of those potential problem areas have been resolved. Bottom line is, we had 43 students in that cohort group that were, many of those were high-risk students. All of those students, all 43, have re-enrolled for spring. Now, 5 of them are not in the dorm program. So if you hear that, hey, some of them bailed out the dorm program, 5 did, but they had good reasons. 1 went to another university, but is enrolled and is on their scholarship program. 3 went to other dormitory housing at Northeastern, and I believe 1 is commuting. So we didn't lose any of those students. At the time of our last meeting, there was some question concerning the use of NAHASDA funds for renovation of dormitories. That is not an issue. We will not be doing that. Northeastern has agreed to provide the dorms in a habitable condition for our use, and then whatever we spent would be minimal to make it a little more Cherokee specific, for instance. So that program is really working. And Northeastern is interested in continuing the program and investing with President Rice at Rogers State. He's very interested in a similar type program. Connors State College, I have not contacted them yet, but plan to before this week's over, because they are moving into a program to counter the end of year test, end of instruction test, with a probably about a 6 weeks intensive course to get a student through the GED and ready for college. So I think it behooves us to at least approach them and see if they might be interested in the same type of situation.
Councilor Jordan?
Dr. Morton, in light of the information that you've been given on that program, am I thinking that possibly there might be money left over to reestablish our dorm assistance program?
Yes.
So would you be able to maybe next month tell us what funds might be available and when we might be able to see that program back up and running?
For the fall program. Actually, it's running now.
The dorm assistance
Yes.
is? Good.
It is running now.
So
It's
if
in
we've
operation
had
now.
children, or young people that have come to us and said, I used to be on dorm assistance, I didn't get it this year, and financially I am in a crunch because of it, can we send them over to y'all's office?
Certainly, certainly.
All right.
We've already visited with Northeastern concerning next year too, of saving a space where we can have at least 45 students for a new freshman class. And of course, we'll follow them all the way through for 4 years.
Now, the dorm assistance though that I'm talking about, will that be available at other schools also?
Just that if we should be able to enter into an agreement with Rogers State for fall, yes, it would be available
And
there.
you're going to also contact Connors?
Yes.
That would be, well, I can't think of the young man's name now, but I know they're most interested in working with us
Yes, they've
on
indicated
a dorm assistance program.
that they would like to work with us on everything. So sort of a new approach at Connors. It's really important.
They also want to work, and they contacted me about this, they want to work with you all on resuming the program at Taft, where we had Cherokee women that we were assisting in receiving a college education while they were incarcerated, so that when they re-entered society, they were better prepared, had skills in which they could possibly get a job. For some reason, last year that was discontinued.
It was discontinued. I'm not familiar since I was out of the office for a couple of years, but I'll be happy to look into it and see if we can get started
If you
again.
would, because apparently it was quite a successful program, and then it was just shut down, and they never received any idea of what the reasoning was, because they were very successful in providing some education for each one of those people, so that when they came back into the workforce,
Society in the marketplace, yeah.
they had more marketable skills than when they left the area. I'd appreciate it if you look
Good
into
deal.
that too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Coates?
Dr. Morton, I think that one of the questions that had also come up around the Promise, the Cherokee Promise Scholars and then NAHASDA funding for it was whether or not that funding was being used to pay instructors. Were you able to verify that that
It
was
is
not
not.
the case? It is not.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions for Dr.?
One other small item, and it doesn't really involve right now, but in fact it does, so if that makes any sense. We talked last month, and you approved a return to the citizenship-based scholarship program. Now, in the wording, and I'm sorry I failed to bring a copy, some old wording I think was picked up, because it says that students could be awarded for up to 4 years. And I remember when I was here before, that we had a working agreement that could be 10 semesters rather than 4 years. So the legislation that you will be acting on tonight, or this afternoon, has 4 years as a limit, and if that could be amended to, at this late date, tonight, to 10 semesters, it would make it a lot better for those of us who administer the program, make it a lot better for the students, because it's extremely difficult in today's student attendance mode. Let's face it, most of our students are working at some type of job in order to get through school. So if we could have the leeway on a case-by-case basis to extend that from, a 4-year terminology to a 10-semester terminology, that would help. An old kid get up there and I need another semester, but I can't get funding for that.
Yeah.
By the way, I failed to tell you that the Promise Scholars that we have in the dorm program, GPA was 3 point something cumulative. So that's fantastic too. So that concludes my report.
Counselor Jordan?
Dr. Morton, what were you talking about that we maybe needed to amend tonight?
Would be to allow 10 semesters of funding if a student is in good standing.
Which one of the resolutions is that on tonight?
I think that's the one walking stick was off, is that
Okay.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's gonna be number 2 under our council book?
Section 5.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
One more comment.
Okay.
Been out of the loop a little while. Back years ago, when your wife and I were on the education committee, we did the Trail of Tears Awards. And the reason for the Trail of Tears Awards is because so many of our Native Americans were, if you do the bell shape, some of you educators are familiar with that, the average would be like 3.35, probably where I fell. And we're not all like the straight A honor roll like Counselor Snell and Counselor Watkins did. And that was the reason that we did the Trail of Tears Awards, was to recognize those students that were just right there, that might be good in art, maybe have a 3-point grade point average. It was very successful at that time. It really served a purpose, and I just wanted an update. Sometimes I'd like to have a little narrative on that. I'm not sure you're even in charge of it anymore.
No, that excuse me, that program is not in Education Services. I believe it was moved to leadership. When the leadership unit was formed. Leadership was formed from pulling programs from various areas, and that one was transferred to leadership. I was not in charge of education at that time.
Would you please give me some narrative or report on that, and by next meeting? I'd like to
Well, I
see.
think Mark will be making a report
Okay,
from
so-
leadership on
okay,
that
okay.
program today.
Just one more comment.
Yes.
Apparently, someone in this body is posting on Facebook and posting my comments and taking them out of context I would like it corrected now.
Yeah, we're here to take care of business of the tribe. We need to, be professional and move forward. So, if there are not any more questions for Dr. Morton, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Morton.
Next report will be Head Start, Ms. Verna Thompson.
I was going to say good morning, but it's good afternoon now. Are there any questions about Head Start, early Head Start?
Do you have your report? Anybody?
If not, I would like to introduce a colleague of mine, J.R. Fields, Thomas Fields. J.R. Fields, stand. I want to introduce him because he co-facilitates our Leadership Academy in the Early Childhood Unit, and he's taken his class to the council meeting this afternoon at 4. And some of them have never been to a council meeting or met each and every one of you. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that if you see a group of Head Start folks there, that's them.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Verna. Okay, leadership, Mike Skinner, Mark Skinner. I apologize for jumping ahead, Mr. Skinner, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. We actually do have information in the report that was submitted about the Trail of Tears Awards and the structure of the awards program this year. Just real briefly, I do want to make two corrections from the draft that was submitted. The GPA that was submitted was 3.9. It's actually 3.75. 3.75.
Okay.
And the dates in which applications are accepted, the date is going to be through March 18th. In the report, it says March 15th. So March 18th is the correct date about that. And if there are ideas on what we can do going forward, the applications are already being accepted at this time for this year. But if there's suggestions about things we can do going forward, we'd welcome those ideas.
Thank you. Any questions for Mark? Councilor Mark Stick?
On the Tribal Youth Council, I was reading on some of the guidelines, and it said that you have a quarter blood quantum for those kids to be on the council. We're setting up a simulation of a government body for youth. I think it should be pretty identical to what we have right now. So I guess communicate that with Patrick. So, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any more questions? Councilor Thornton?
I've just got to voice my opinion on this quarter. I know that our Cherokee Princes and Prince and all these people are set up to have to be a quarter to come into the program. And we've got chiefs that are not quarter. And I think if you can serve to be a chief and not be a quarter, you ought to be able to be a Cherokee Princess and not be a quarter. And I think we need to change that. And I don't know how to go about it, but I think that we should have some programs, or if I come up with something on that, or an act or a resolution, I think we need to think about that. And I'd like to know what some of you other people think about that. But
Is this a recent change, some of you council members, that's been? Or is this something that's been in place for some time?
When did it come out?
What's the question exactly for me?
Councilor Walkenstick made the comment that on the youth council, that the criteria has to be 1/4 or more. And then Councilor Thornton said, if our leadership doesn't have to be of that degree, why should this particular body have to? And my question was, when was this initiated? Is this a new initiative by this administration? Has this been in place for,
The change to 1/4 blood quantum, or the change
Yes.
away from?
the change to the 1/4 that the Councilor Walkenstick alluded to?
I'm not familiar with any specific recent change as it relates to that. I know there's been some discussion about what it should or shouldn't be. The Tribal Youth Council specifically, which I think is the one that you mentioned, they are working on the bylaws as we speak, and they'll be presenting those at the March Rules Committee meeting. So there'll be information in there about that, and I haven't seen a draft of that yet, so I don't know if they're proposing to change that or not.
So it's been in place then?
As far as I know, it's been in place as far as the quarter blood quantum requirement for Miss Cherokee and for the Tribal Youth Council. Those are still in effect as far as I know. Although I have heard that there's been discussions about maybe looking at changing that. I haven't heard anything officially.
It was not in place when I was in office. We did not have that criteria.
Okay.
So it must have been changed.
That's very possible.
Yes, yeah. Councilor Coates.
I would sort of respectfully differ with that. I believe it was in place because when I first started working here in 2000, I know it was already in place at that time and that it had been in place for some time. And I know that the Miss Cherokees, because we've checked on this recently, that didn't used to be in place from what Ms. Scott was telling me in the 70s, but was put in place sometime in the 80s, I believe she said, after that. So both, all of those kinds of requirements have been in place for a while, is my understanding.
Okay.
Anyway.
Maybe it's in place, and I just don't remember ever making it an issue. I don't think it ever was an issue back then. So, I understand what you're saying. Any more questions? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Good report. Old business, none pending, new business. Review and update of the history course.
Yes.
Tanya?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm one of the sponsors of the agenda item, which is titled Review and Update of the History Course Materials. I put this on the agenda to do just that. I don't see anywhere on the agenda item, as speculated by some of the people that have been sending a number of council members emails, that there was anything in this agenda item that would lead anyone to believe that anyone in this body was in favor of terminating this course. Again, that's the danger of using email and Facebook, is that people put out bad information that has no background. Our intent, myself and my co-sponsor, was to make this a review and update of the materials that are currently being used that haven't been updated for a period of probably at least 15 years. Now, in talking with other educators, I find that periodically you review textbooks, a lot of times between 3 and 5 years after they're issued. So this seemed to be an appropriate time for us to look into updating this material. Apparently, this agenda item spawned a review by the Attorney General's office of our current material. So I did ask the Attorney General to come today and talk to some of the copyright issue concerns. I also asked Dr. Morton, who's over education, to come today to talk about and enlighten us as to what possibly we could do with this course in the future. Because we do have in excess of 300,000 Cherokee Nation members. Many of these members want to be enlightened about our history. Not maybe just the legal aspect of our history, but who some of the maybe true heroes of our history might be. And this book, apparently, because I took this course many years ago, I asked for the book to be loaned to me that's being used currently, and I'm still seeing the same information from a book that I had almost 15 years ago and the loose leaf material book that is being used today. So I think, one, we need to look at updating the materials, and two, I would hope this body would be in favor of expanding this program from the current program that it appears to be, which is a volunteer coming to the nation and saying, I want to teach this history course. Provide me the materials. Provide me a way to get to a location that I want to teach this history course. Provide me a room provide me a car, provide me per diem, and I'll go teach this history course for you. I think we've moved from that volunteer program to a program now that needs to be formalized. If we're going to sanction the course, we need to bring in regular teachers to teach this course. We need to even think about maybe possibly long-distance learning. Because if you all will recall, I think it was back in probably along about 2007, we spent $250,000 to update a room over next to the restaurant. I believe it's in that leg opposite of being directly behind the restaurant. And there's been $250,000 spent on that room, updating that room so that we could teach in that room and possibly take many of the things that we do out across the country, across the world, to basically anyone that can use a computer. The other situation that I see that maybe we need to think about covering is this course appears to only be geared towards an age group, an older age group. We need to be looking at teaching our history to our young people, to our children. And so there are many things that I would hope that we would consider doing with this course, none of which involve terminating this course. And again, I cannot emphasize to this body, when you release stuff that's untrue in an email or put it on Facebook and you only tell half of the story, you're doing a misjustice, a terrible thing, a terrible wrong to the group of people that we represent. So with that, I would like to give some of my time to both Dr. Morton and then to our AG, Todd Hembry, to talk about, one, what we could do with the course, and two, have Mr. Hembry talk to us about the copyright issues. So whichever one of you all would like to go first.
I wouldn't say age before beauty, but
Get permission from the chair.
yes.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Counselor, Mr. Chairman, and the Education Committee. My position is very, very short. That's why I'll go first. One of the things that I said I would do when I was put up for nomination is to ensure that the Cherokee Nation does whatever, in whatever actions it takes, does so legally. I was asked to look into the history book, and just from the very onset, there are some concerns about copyright infringements on that. I put one of my staff attorneys on that, and he confirmed those sentiments. The history course, and therefore it's prudent for the Cherokee Nation to before it prints any more of these books, make sure that we are on the right side of any copyright law. I have engaged outside individuals to look at this matter. We are in a careful and comprehensive review of it. It is ongoing. We are very active in it, and we hope to have either the copyright issues resolved, either through the appropriate permissions to be sought or a revision of the material to be used. But mindful that I take my duty seriously, and I may be conservative in my approach, but it is my goal to ensure that if a compilation of materials is being produced by the Cherokee Nation, it's done so legally. So in that regard, let me say this, that I am a student of history. That is probably one of my most ardent passions. And I know that being Cherokee knows no boundaries.
And I want the citizens of the Cherokee Nation in Tahlequah, in Greasy, in Oklahoma City, in Sacramento, in Dallas, I want them to know Cherokee Nation history. I think it's one of our highest callings to make sure that is done. And I will work as Attorney General to make sure that the materials we use are done so properly and equitably. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Councilor Thornton?
Yes, just to add on to what Councilor Glover said, as far as taking these programs and setting up a program, taking it to the communities, and taking it to our children and to our elders, I have to think about my district. And I have so many people in my district with so many kids that can't go home and get on a computer because they don't have a computer. We have, in setting up this program, we have several community organizations in my district. And if we could bring computers into these organizations and set it up where it wouldn't be very far for our people to go. You know, there at Night Cut, they wouldn't have to go very far, or at Belfont, or we could set it up at a school, you know, or Marble City, or there's another food pantry there at Marble City that they could set one up. But that's the type of deal we need to go into, I believe, and also very, very, our people are adamant about language. And if we could set up a language program along with this, I think it would help our people very, very much, because people, you go out there and you get people 30 years old and down, they don't speak language. And you could probably go up another 10 years. And that's what we need to do, is to bring our language back, because the language will be the basis of our being here and being represented. And that's the way I feel. But I'll quit preaching. Thank you, sir.
Very well, thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Washington?
I'd like to set up an advisory board of non-elected officials to board made up of historians and different college professors that expertise is in Cherokee history, and have them go through this curriculum and to be sure it's accurate.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Coates?
Is that fine? I have quite a few statements to make, as you might have guessed. The interesting thing I'm hearing here is there's a lot of confusion, I think, in terms of what people are saying, and what are texts, what are compilations of documents, what is curriculum, what is methodology. All of these are different things, and they're all being kind of jumbled together, and when they're really sort of unrelated things. One of the things I think that causes concern for me, for Lee Keener, who also teaches this class, for my constituents certainly who are at large, and this is the group that most needs the support of the Cherokee Nation itself in terms of resources, in order for this class to be produced for them, because Lee and I both teach in local communities as well, as have a number of other people over the years, and that's no problem, you know. Not a lot of resources involved necessarily in doing that, but for the at-large people, there is. So this is the group that is going to be disproportionately impacted should this course, and it is suspended. I mean, no one has said terminated, but it is at this time suspended. And the concern is that an item like this shows up on the agenda. You've got two people on this body who are most involved with this, and yet neither one of us were ever even notified, much less consulted, of this particular item. At about the same time, the director of CADA is making statements to the at-large organizations out in California, statements that he had made to me in his office just a few weeks earlier, that the present, basically, fundamentally, that the present version of the course probably will not continue while the curriculum is being redeveloped, and so it may be a long time before there's another class available to them. And it's fundamentally the same thing that he said to me. And so I think that those kinds of statements, in conjunction with this appearing without any sort of understanding on the part of those of us who actually teach it as to what this was about, has led to the consternation. And I disagree. I think it's a reasonable way to connect the dots, and I think that my constituents had a right to be alerted of this possibility. In addition to that, we now have a suspension of a class in San Francisco that we had already begun to register for, that was enacted by Secretary of State Charles Head. So the class is suspended at this time. The whole project is suspended, not just that one class, but I presume the employee classes, everything is suspended pending a review of the documents. Now, anybody who's familiar with this text knows that about 90% of it at least are primary source documents. They are treaties, they are court cases, they are legal acts. These are public domain documents. It's hard to update a treaty. The treaty is what it is. It's not going to change. Same with the court decision with the legislative act. So we're getting confused about what is a textbook, which is indeed periodically updated, but a compilation of public domain documents, you can't update them. They are what they are. So if we want to add to that compilation, if we want to subtract from it, maybe those are legitimate things to say about it. But it's really unprecedented, I think, for this body to come up and bring a review of these kinds of things. This is something that a program would do, maybe at the request of this body, but to put it in front of this body for the review. Most people here don't have the degree of expertise to really assess these kinds of things. And in terms of historians who specialize in Cherokee history and college professors, well, if you're going to eliminate elected officials, you're going to eliminate 3 people right here, you know, who are exactly that kind of expertise. And I'm not quite sure what the elimination of elected officials that's proposed is all about, what the reasoning is behind that. When we have a letter from Chief Baker saying that the administration is not going to make the decision about the history course, that will be up to the tribal council. That too is rather unprecedented, I think, for the tribal council, for the legislative body, to be responsible for making a decision about a program of the Cherokee Nation, whether it's going to continue or not. That's always a decision of the administration. And the administration has in fact made that decision at this point in the form of Secretary of State Head suspending it for the time being. So I think that you can understand why there's a lot of consternation when we can't really seem, I've called it in these emails that I've sent out, I've called this a moving target. We can't figure out what the deal is here. Is it a review of the copyright? Is it an updating of the course? Is it too much money being spent? Is it elected officials teaching it? It always seems to be moving around in terms of what the real issue is, which makes a lot of us feel that the real issue is not being forthrightly stated. And because most of these other things can be answered. One of the things I immediately said after it was suspended for a review of copyright issues was that since most of the documents in this compilation are public domain primary source documents, there is clearly no copyright issue whatsoever with those. And the fact of the matter is, for those of us who teach the course, those are the documents that we primarily use in class. Almost everything else in there, of the 10% that is other, we don't actually use it in terms of the lecture. It's just part of this reference text, basically, that we have handed out to people. And so my question to Secretary Head and to the AG was, we can go ahead and teach this class just using the documents that are clearly in the public domain, and could we have permission to go ahead and do that? And I've had no response whatsoever to that question from either the AG, and I think more appropriately from Secretary Head would be the place that the response would appropriately come from. So I'm not necessarily throwing this on you. But I just said you were basically copied on that, yeah, because that's not your decision. I understand you did not suspend and say
you're on standby.
But, so, these are some of the issues, but I guess that, you know, there are other things that have been mentioned. The ideas of expanding this to other age groups and so forth.
Point of order. As I understand it, the course has not been suspended. The materials in their printing has been put on hold.
That's
a
not
big
correct.
difference.
I can show you the email that says the history course project is on hold.
Todd, will you speak to that?
Yeah.
Councilwoman Coates has the floor.
No, I have the floor, and I gave part of my time to the Attorney General and
That's
part
correct.
to Dr. Morton. I did not give any time to Councilman Coates.
Actually, we were going to
No,
go
Chairman
with our,
Byrd did,
actually,
so-
we were going to go our AG, then Dr. Martin. But she had the floor and yielded time to
But you gave
our
her
AG.
permission.
Yes,
to,
yes, sir, I did.
So
But-
she still has.
Well,
Point of order, I thought when somebody was lying or telling an untruth that took precedence.
Let's yield our AG here.
okay, ladies and gentlemen, I will put on my council attorney hat since you do not have one yet. Hopefully you will have one soon. The orders of the day was that Miss Councilwoman Gloria Jordan had the floor. She yielded time to both Dr. Morton and myself to address issues. Mine was the copyright. I got up, I gave my statement on copyright, and I stand ready to entertain any questions as to copyright. Now, if it's the decision of the chair that has spilled over from that, you have the decision to say, well, we've gone beyond that, and because everyone's going to get to speak on this issue. Everyone's, this is a debatable issue. Everyone's going to get to speak. It's in what form of it. At this point, Ms. Gloria Jordan has the floor. She has yielded time. I've made my statement, and I will entertain any questions as to copyright infringement, and that's where it is.
Any questions pertaining to copyright to our AG?
Just one question. Todd, is it right the materials are on hold right now?
Yes. The
Is
Cherokee
that-
Nation, the Cherokee Nation, per my unofficial memorandum, I have suggested that they stop printing the document known as the Cherokee Nation History Book until we have resolved our copyright issues, and we were actively and aggressively seeking the resolution of that as we speak.
So it's just materials on hold, not the course itself?
That's my aspect of it. That's my limited aspect of it.
Okay. So noted.
To follow up on that, were you not on an email exchange, however, in which Secretary had ordered that the direct mailing to advertise the San Francisco class be stopped?
If I was on the email, I would like to see it, but I mean, I get hundreds. I get hundreds of emails a day.
I know that IT was, and the mailing was stopped and the
Okay,
class
well,
was stopped.
I cannot say that I wasn't,
Okay.
but I get way too many more emails than I used to.
Any more questions on copyright to our AG? Yes, Councilor Fulbright.
Yes, we're all very anxious for this to be resolved. Do you have any idea how long it will take to correct the copyright?
Well, this is a top priority, this is a front burner issue for me, because I understand the consternation to the council members, to the citizens both in and without our jurisdictional boundaries. We will get to resolution to this as expediently as possible.
Thank you.
Councilor Hoskins.
Mr. Chairman, it probably was going to be in the form of a rebuttal to Councilor Coates, and I think that Councilor Gloria Jordan had the floor, and she had asked Dr. Morton to be, so I guess I would hold off if we're going to continue on with Councilor Gloria Jordan's presentation.
Okay. Any more questions on copyrights? We have Fish and Hawks next.
No, it doesn't pertain to copyright, so I'll pass right now.
Okay. Jordan. Baker.
Yes. Could the history course material be printed, eliminating those questionable copyright issues, which would be the majority of the history course? Could that still be printed?
Well, I mean, could it? Possibly. It is what my office is doing is reviewing the entire book. And if we're going to divide out what is pure public domain, and also that's what is pure public domain and what is permission from authors is also one aspect of it. Through this looking at it and information that I've gathered through the internet, etc. We also have to look at whether there was a charge made for these materials, because in some of these at-large communities there's a charge. Now, was that charge part of for the history book or not? We need to resolve that.
I can respond to that
Okay.
if you like, if I have permission to do that.
Councilor Coates, respond to the question.
There was a period of time for just a few years when we charged $10 per person to take the course. Now, we were charging that because when it had been for free, people would sign up and then they wouldn't show up. And we had a limited number of seats, and what was happening is that we were turning people away because we thought we were full, and then we had extra seats that we could have filled had people shown up that had signed up when it was a free class. So we started charging $10 simply to make people make a little bit of an investment, hoping that it would increase the amount of the degree of attendance. It was successful for the most part in doing that, but clearly $10 did not cover the cost of the book, the travel, the shipping, the direct mailing, etc. It went no way towards, so we have always handed this book out for free. People have asked me a number of times if they could purchase the book. And because I am a professor and because I do put together readers and packets all the time for students, I'm pretty well aware of what you can put in a reader and not violate copyright restrictions. And that's why I feel very, very confident in this text. But what I've always told people is we cannot legally sell the book, and I cannot even legally give it away unless somebody is actually sitting in the class and participating in the class. And I've been very, very strict about that, and I believe all the teachers have been very, very strict about that, because we are aware that there is an issue around that, or I always have been at least.
That's very good information. I mean, but I have also gotten information that there was a newspaper article, and I forget which city it was in, that said that cost of this program was $62, which included the price of the textbook. I mean, that's in a newspaper article. These are just some of the issues that I am investigating.
The only time we've charged things like that have been when we're doing a class that is sponsored by the Cherokee Nation and that is predominantly for Cherokee Nation citizens. We consider that to be subsidized by the Cherokee Nation. Now, there are some other entities, museums, historical societies, predominantly those in the southeast. The Chieftains Museum has contracted with us 3 or 4 different times. The Bradley County, Tennessee Historical Society, the group in Chattanooga. There have been different groups that have contracted for us to present this course. And we know that it is not going to be predominantly for Cherokee Nation citizens. So although we have advertised those in the paper, in the Phoenix, just to, if there are some citizens in the area that they want to take it, the charges in those amounts have predominantly been to cover expenses, travel expenses, and other expenses that the organization may have in terms of producing it. I don't know what they've said, but we have always made it very, very clear that we are not selling the text, that they will receive a text as part of it, but that we are not selling a text.
Mr. Agee, is there a set of criteria on how this is supposed to be presented, or who can teach this?
As to the copyright, who
Yes.
can? Sure, yeah, it's called the fair use doctrine, and we are investigating that. And as you can see through the information, that Ms. Coates has said and that I've looked at, it's not a cut and dry issue about this being charged for. So that's one thing I'm looking into, and that's why I'm going to do a very careful and comprehensive review of the entire project book.
Now, thinking we're the largest tribe in the United States, surely we can come up with a way to present the history of the Cherokee people, of people of all ages, children, like Councilor Thorpe said, to our elders, that they can comprehend and be proud of. and we can all endorse and support and bless. You know, there's people who read history books. If you read the Oklahoma history book, there's a lot of information. It doesn't tell a whole lot about Native Americans. We're living that history. Surely we can come up with a way that we can present this to our people.
I'm sure there is.
I would like to think so. Counselor.
I would like to know where the money went. You know, it was this past year, I seen an ad in the newspaper, and maybe we need to get Doug in here, and it said, take your history course, it had Julie's name on it, what have you, send $10 to. Where'd the money go?
Not this year. We've stopped charging since I came on council.
Again,
Precisely for this
I will
reason.
pull it. I
Well,
will
again,
pull
it
it and
is,
send to
you know, it's you know, how this program is expanded, how money is appropriated for it, and what money that is your job as counselors to look over the budget of the Cherokee Nation.
You're
It is.
absolutely, I'll cut it short, you're absolutely right. I give the newspaper to Doug, it was like 8 months ago, I will have him check into it, I'll bring it back, and I will send it to everybody on this council.
Please direct my questions to copyright.
And if there's not any more questions on copyright, we're going to go to Dr. Morton. Dr. Morton, you're up.
And I don't even have a dog in the hunt. But the one I did have was maimed. I was asked by the Chief of Staff to provide just a brief comment concerning what a history course might be for Cherokee Nation. Contains 6 paragraphs. Facebook and email, there are volumes as thick as the original history book. I'm going to take the liberty, since I've been called upon, to read those paragraphs. And if someone has a real problem with it, I want to know it now instead of being accused of acting in ignorance. I have reviewed a lot of curricula, and I'm not bragging. Graduate deans spend most of their time on that. I simply gave about 6 paragraphs and stated for discussion purposes only. And again, I didn't realize that this was going to be a worldwide fight. And by the way, it's the first time I've ever been involved with a curriculum review that was when the response has been in a very uncivil nature. So, you're in for some reading, and then we'll go from there. This brief treatise, with reference to the current materials used in teaching the Cherokee History course, is offered to provide an educator's viewpoint to current discussions arising from the Cherokee Nation Attorney General's action to implement a legal review of documentation of materials presently assembled in loose leaf form and constituting by numerical page sequence, which is incorrect, it isn't even paged, a document entitled Cherokee Nation History Course, sans copyright or publication references. Now, do you have any question about that? Do you have any question about that? As a professional educator with much concern about academic integrity, and you know, it irritates me to, well, no, I'm used to teaching a class where people pay attention. As a professional educator with much concern about academic integrity and the composition of research findings and teaching media, I applaud the decision by the CN Attorney General to provide a legal review of the primary compilation of materials currently utilized in the course content. I think that's just plain common sense. I would urge, however, that a curricular content analysis of the history book be conducted immediately following the release of the Attorney General's findings. Okay? The content of the current teaching materials appear to be, which of course means it's my opinion, to focus on the, quote, losses, end quote, of the Cherokee via broken treaties and forced land cessions. Although there are references to some notable achievements by individuals and the tribe as a whole, the uniqueness of the people and their unparalleled accomplishments receive scant attention. There's not any humanistic content to the history. It's simply a legal treatise. There's not anything in the history about the unique tribal lifeways of the Cherokee. Nothing in the history about the elders. And there's absolutely nothing in the current history course about women. A prospective teacher utilizing the book may be justified in asking the question, where are the heroes? And I asked that question today. Where are the heroes in that compilation of materials? This void becomes even greater when seeking reference in the material to outstanding individuals or groups outside the political arena. And I would say that history is more than a political fight between the Cherokee Nation and the United States of America. In my opinion, again, remember, I'm not stating this as authority on anything. In my opinion, teaching materials must be organized for the purpose of broadening persons, especially Cherokees, sense of place in the warp and weave of history. Content must be appropriate for different age groups in both interest level and in academic content. The young must be able to find their heroes from both the past and the present historical arenas. Curriculum development usually begins with analysis of current best practice examples. For discussion purposes, and notice that, for discussion purposes, I am providing a model that has particular appeal to me. That doesn't mean I want you to love it, accept it, or anything else. It has particular appeal to me. One that is organized according to an operational framework which was developed for the California State Board of Education in 2000 with a review and a reposting in 2009. And the rest of it is simply that framework. You know, a curriculum must be more than just the course content. You must have objectives, must have statement of the materials as broad as possible, and above all, it must have evaluation, and that would include review. But again, you know, as to how this can go on, I don't see how there would be anything to hold the Cherokee Nation back from teaching history. There are enough historians out there, there are enough materials out there, until sometime, perhaps, the Cherokee Nation could have its own. It could have its own history, written by a panel of scholars, and could be updated, like on a 10-year basis. For instance, there is a portion of history that the younger people will be much more concerned with. And that's the history that happened since the Dawes Commission. That's the history that's happening right now. That's what they're interested in, because they can relate to that. There's absolutely no way for them to relate to what happened to their grandparents or their great-grandparents, except through their own families lore. So again, I had no intentions of getting into this domestic dispute. And I stand on what I said as a professional educator. And the attacks I have received, that does not bother me at all. Not at all. It simply proves my point. Thank you.
Very well. Councilor George.
First of all, on behalf of myself, and I hope most of this body, I don't think it will be all of the body, because I think there was a few in this body that started this problem. I want to apologize for the statements that I've seen made on Facebook about Dr. Morton. Those were entirely inappropriate. And I sense a social media act coming before this body in the near future to stop some of the inappropriate activity that is taking place on Facebook. But back to this agenda item. I would like to carry this agenda item to the next month and continue to talk about whether we should review and update the history course materials. I note that this was an 11 o'clock meeting and it's now 2 o'clock. So I would make a motion to table till next month.
Motion and second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
One abstention. Announcements? None. Next meeting date, March 12th, 3 o'clock.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Adjourn. I need that back. You got it.
I need that back.